All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there just like you, just like me. All right, before I get going on this video, here is Bonham Bullock. Really cool stuff. Deborah Bonham is the younger sister of the late John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Really cool. And apparently they were both into the blues. I'm sure the younger sister got hooked and all that stuff thanks to the older brother, Peter Bullock, playing guitar. Great music, came out last year. I was stunned and shocked by the album. I've been listening to it ever since. And a lot of people were stunned and shocked that Bonnie Raitt won a Grammy. And the way people are wording these articles, Bonnie Raitt gives us something to talk about. She has earned 13 Grammys over a 50-year career. Now, I grew up on Cape Cod as a teenager, and every radio station on the Cape was trying to out adult contemporary the other radio station. So I was listening to Bonnie Raitt before Bonnie Raitt started to really catch on. And people always wondered, why isn't she breaking through? She did an album, I think, where she recorded a song with or by Bryan Adams, I want to say mid-'80s. And it was a big change in style for her. And then she found her sweet spot. I think the first song that I really got into was her version of John Hyatt's Thing Called Love. And John does a great job with it, obviously. And Bonnie just, sassed it up even more. And then she's got that slide guitar going, and she became a rock radio artist for a number of years before really kind of transferring most of her popularity over to adult contemporary radio. But we used to play this tune called Love Letter, and it just has this great kind of keyboard part, and this thing just kind of just builds. And you may not have heard that song in a long time, if at all. But that's one of the tunes that I used to love to play by Bonnie Raitt. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of Bonnie Raitt's woke activism and her politics. I'm just going to throw it out there. Look, there were a lot of weird things that was going on at the Grammy Awards. Like, was Beyonce up there congratulating a certain group of people for inventing the R&B genre? And again, these are clips that I watched later. I didn't watch the Satanic opening, which some rock stars, current rock stars, are defending and saying it was just amazingly creative, pushing the envelope, good for everybody to see. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I want the Grammys to be about music. I don't want the Grammys to be about devil worship. But okay, this is what... Folks, you can see the culture unraveling, and this is very much disconnected from the cartoon version of this stuff that was really popular in the 1980s with heavy metal bands and so forth. They would use a lot of very dark imagery, or some people would call it satanic or whatever. And most of these people were kind of joking. Ozzy Osbourne, he's not really the Prince of Darkness. He's the Prince of, using these themes to create this image. Kind of like Ronnie James Dio. A lot of these guys said, hey, we can create this persona, and it's not who we are. We don't go home and behave this way, for the most part. I'm sure there are instances where, that person was who they portrayed, but for the most part, it was an act, and people knew it was an act. What I saw at the Grammys, I don't think that was an act, based on the person's own lifestyle and the things they claim to be or claim not to be, or they don't claim anything. They're just like this blank slate. Like, yeah, I don't play for either team. Okay, great. There's this thing called biology. You might want to check out a textbook or just read something that maybe is a lot easier than like reading a whole book on it. I think a page or two would probably cover it. Anyway, let's get back to Bonnie Raitt. So this was kind of surprising that she would win a Grammy after all this time, and she looks and sounds almost identical to her 30-year ago self or 40-year ago self. It's remarkable. She's 73 years old. She started very young in the business. I think she opened up for the Byrds when she was like 20 or 21. And people knew she had talent, and they were finally able to market her talent. A bit like what happened with Tina Turner. I look at their careers. Although Tina had Ike, Bonnie never had that kind of exposure early on. But man, oh man, when Bonnie broke out big in the 80s, it was awesome to see because everybody had been rooting for her for many years. But I think the real show-stopping portion of Bonnie Raitt being at the Grammys was her performance with Mick Fleetwood and Sheryl Crow honoring the late, great Christine McVie. And again, I'm not going to talk about what happened to Christine McVie. It is what it is, and I'm trying not to be insensitive anymore. So anyway, the performance was show-stopping, and I can kind of see the wheels in Irving Azoff's head turning, going Fleetwood Mac with Sheryl Crow and Bonnie Raitt. Some people are saying, well, just Bonnie Raitt. Nope, because Sheryl Crow plays keyboards. I'm not sure if Bonnie Raitt plays keyboards. We know that Bonnie Raitt plays a mean slide guitar. And having her and Lindsey Buckingham on stage and Stevie Nicks, maybe too much ego in the room? I don't know. But you would sell tickets. You'd have to bring Sheryl Crow along, I think, as well. But again, you know, it would be fitting because they replaced Lindsey Buckingham with two guys twice. And they did it, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s. And they did it again for the last Fleetwood Mac tour. You replace Christine McVie with both Sheryl Crow and Bonnie Raitt. I think one of the big problems, though, is John McVie. John McVie is, or was, one of the Macs in Fleetwood Mac. And if he doesn't want to be there anymore, if he's done touring, and that's the word, is that John McVie wants nothing to do with any concert touring, I say bring it to him. You know, bring all the shows over to the UK. I'm assuming he's living in the UK. If he's not, he might be living in Southern California. Either way, you bring the shows close to where John McVie lives. And you say, hey, John, we're going to do a run of shows here and make people travel. And they would. They would travel to see Lindsey and Stevie back on stage. That would be the headline news. And then a nice little sub-story underneath would be Bonnie Raitt and Sheryl Crow attempt to replace Christine McVie. And I'm thinking Christine McVie would be honored by having those two ladies be a part of a Fleetwood Mac reboot. Call it a reboot. And they could record stuff. You know, I'm thinking Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Nicks, Sheryl Crow. Come on, man. That's got to be something big right there. But again, it might be over, and Bonnie Raitt might want to just, tour on her own, especially after what just happened with her. Ticket prices are going to go up. Her album is now being listened to. And who knows, maybe radio might grab a song and throw it on there. I mean, all that stuff she did from this album is very similar to the stuff she did in the late 80s into the mid 90s. And so I know it's not fashionable anymore. It doesn't go on rock stations, that's for sure. But you could put it on an old school adult contemporary station, one that had a little bit of class and wanted to play something that wasn't, just made on a computer. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. So it's interesting to speculate. I mean, it's better to speculate about this than, what caused so and so not to be here anymore. And, you get yourself into trouble because you start to think everything was caused by that one problem. And it could be. It could be. But apparently nobody wants to talk about that. They don't want to hear it. So enough being insensitive. I am talking music, baby, in real time for real people. Speaking of music, here's Bonham Bullock. If you're a Bonnie Raitt fan, even if you're not a Bonnie Raitt fan, if you want to hear a great singer with a great guitarist, right there. All right. I believe they're both in and from the UK. So you won't hear too much about this in the States because for some reason, like Canadian music or British music or music from Sweden, it doesn't register at all. If it's good music, it should go around the world and people should be talking about it, right? But they're not. So anyway, that's why I do what I do. Thanks for being here, folks. Again, Patreon, $1 a month. Patreon, I need your help because there's certain people on Patreon who aren't there anymore, okay? And I need some replacements. If not, you can go over to YouTube memberships. And this isn't begging, by the way. There are channels that do whole segments, like very professional segments, begging for money, or at least just telling people, hey, if you like the content, here, support the channel, here's how you do it. And so, yeah, I need your help. The algorithm doesn't like me, and I need to overcome that. So you need to share the videos, like the videos, send the videos along to whoever. And again, if you can help me out on either one of those two platforms, Patreon and YouTube memberships, it, of course, would be much appreciated. All right, everyone. Thanks again. And of course, I will see you soon.